Let's Podcast. Alongside Joe Giglio, I'm Joe Ovias, inside Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management in the cloud, print assessments, customer service, which is actually the key here. If they can help Joe Giglio work a Kiosk or a printer, they can help your entire staff. That, folks, is a testament to their ability to work with you.
Rocky 4.
Joe.
Yes.
You were in the building last night.
I was there for my Deeks.
Watching your Deeks wearing that yellow pad Adidas hoodie, standing out in a sea of blue behind the Duke bench. Your Deeks, were they aware that you were there to watch them? They let you down last night at Cameron, man.
Well, first of all, I had them in the first half and they covered, so that was good. I got smart. I got smart because their roster is the best in the ACC in the first half. I now know this. But first of all, thank you to Matt Davis for bringing this over. State Farm. You have some State Farm needs. You have some insurance needs. You want to save money like our listener, Christian, and realize, hey, I could save thousands. Check him out. It's the OGinsurance.com. I you know how much respect I have for Steve Forbes. I'm watching this game. Hunter Salas was the best player on the floor last night. I don't see much way around that. Okay. And there's long stretches where Cam Hildreth is running Wake's offense. He finally did bench Boopie Miller in the second half. Boopie was in the tank. Yeah. Boopie was back in one of the directional Michigans last night.
The game was too much for Boopie last night.
That was brutal. He was terrible. Hildreth was awful. And his histrionics even got to John Shire at one point, which was interesting. And Salas had 14 points in the first half. They're doing just fine, even though they shot poorly. Then in the second half, they go away from him. Mm-hmm. I wanted to stand up and scream to him. Can we die with our fastball, please? Can my Deeks please die with their fastball?
I think you needed to be behind the Wake bench.
I did. That might have been distracting, but
Forbes probably would have looked back at you like, Joe, could you not?
Not now.
Not now.
Not now.
Yeah, maybe later. I'll see you at the ACC tournament. We can have a conversation, but not now.
But I thought Duke in the second half. I thought we saw Mark Mitchell kind of assert himself, and I'm really starting to wonder if the young guy isn't the bus driver on this team.
What, McCain?
McCain. Starting to wonder.
One quick note about Wake Forest. I'm like you. I want to like Wake Forest, man. They've got a good roster.
Yeah.
And to your point about Cam Hildreth, the Englishman, I think Duke put him in a position where they were like, fine, man, take all your shots. I mean, they clearly were working defensively to make sure that Wake was, and it's not like Wake got some open looks, man. Yeah. They got open looks.
Monsanto was in the tank. That poor guy's got one leg.
And it's funny in the post game, Steve Forbes was getting asked a bunch of different questions. I know Cam, who covers Wake Forest for the Deacon Digest, I think it was the 24/7 site. And Cam's a good follow if you're a Wake Forest person. And he had followed up a question with Steve Forbes about the shots not going in. It's like, I don't have an answer for you, fellas. I think I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the audio. It's like I don't have an answer for you, fellas. Sometimes the ball just doesn't go through the hole. It's that simple, right?
Well, sometimes the wrong people are taking shots.
And I think that's what Duke did a good job of.
I don't mind the Monsanto because that's what he does.
Sure.
But he's 2 for 9 and he was just jacking shots. And I'm like, same thing with Hildreth. He just took too many shots. He's 1 for 9. He was just trying to do too much.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate his utilitarian mode that he has, and he is a versatile player, but he was struggling. And then, of course, Boopie was non-existent. Boopie and Hildreth were 2 of 16.
Mm-hmm.
Monsanto was 2 of 9 from 3. I mean, it's just, you can't win basketball games that way.
And the problem for Wake right now is that this was a Q1 opportunity for them. They're 0-4 in Q1 opportunities, 5-4 in Q2. They got another chance against Virginia. And that's my issue with Wake is that you want to like them. You do. They got a nice roster, but they just can't get over. And I don't know why they can't get over. What is whole? I mean,
they actually played decent defense in this game. That's been their problem. Defense has been their biggest. Second halves have been their biggest problem, and they let this game get away from them in the first 10 minutes. Like Efton Reed, I'm like the president of the Efton Reed fan club, and the guy he's got 3 fouls.
Yeah.
In the first half, and he comes on in the first 30 seconds. I mean, that was like Richard Howell-esque.
Yes, it was.
Like, you have 3 fouls, you can't foul, and in the first 27 seconds of the second half, he picks up his 4th foul.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're at Duke. You're playing without your serviceable big man, Marsh. God bless him, bless his heart. Whatever it is you're supposed to say about a guy who's not helpful. So you win. You play this game without Reed and with 3 of your shooters playing poorly.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a testament to them that it was only an 8-point game.
Or is it more of an indictment on Duke that Efton Reed has these issues? They're not shooting well, and Wake Forest still hung around. Because that, on the flip side of this, last night kind of crested over thanks to Jay Williams, who was working the studio. Now, again, I was at the game last night. You were at the game last night. I was obviously not watching it on TV, but I get home. I'm doing the classic, garbage plating of food because I haven't eaten dinner and my brain's still kind of functioning from watching the game. And I open up social media, and apparently Jay Williams went as far to call this Duke team soft. This is something that's been kind of lingering around this Duke squad for the last couple of weeks. Nobody wants to outright say it. So Jay, at halftime, actually retweeted himself from somebody else's video cam footage. And Jay says, "I couldn't say what the hell I really wanted to say, but y'all know what I was talking about." And here's the clip.
If you're gonna pee like a puppy, stay on the porch. Let the big dogs eat. So if you're not gonna play.
So there you go. There's Jay Williams. Let the big dogs eat. So there's this kind of knock that's been floating around Duke and whether or not they've got that toughness. If Coach K would never, and I'm guilty of this. I've actually brought this up too. How would Coach K react to some of this stuff? And it's weird because you brought it up the other day when you went down their analytics, right? You look at Duke's squad. They're now what? They're 19-5. That's the same record as UNC. They're 10-3 in the conference, 1 game back of North Carolina, who's 11-2 in the conference. Yet the way we talk about Duke, it's frustration. And I think that might lead to what you've been saying about the squad is, whose team is this? You look at Duke play and you're like, whose is it? I know who it is with Carolina, right? Whose team is this? Do you have an answer for that?
I think I'm starting to get 2012 vibes from them.
Okay.
And if you can't keep your Duke years straight, that was the Austin Rivers year. That was their first dalliance into the one and done, depending on whatever your definition of Kyrie Irving is. But Austin Rivers wanted to be the man on that team and obviously hit a very famous shot in Chapel Hill.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, that team fractured because if you're a freshman and you want to be the man, you better be the effing man. You better be Zion. You better be Banchero. You better be, even Tatum struggled with it because of some injuries. But Austin Rivers was like, okay, some games you see it, and then other games like Seth Curry, the Plumlee brothers, Ryan Kelly, those were all Quinn Cook. Those were all good college players who had kind of paid their dues and were like awesome. We think cool, but you're not that guy. And there's some of that going on. Filipowski's confidence, if you just look at the box score, he had 21 and 10. He was really good. His confidence is somewhere else.
I've been telling you.
His confidence is somewhere else. He's 1 for 6 from 3. He got to the point in the second half where Mike Marsh was playing off of him, and he would not shoot the basketball. And I'm just sitting there going, holy smokes, dude. You waiting for the invitation? And then his problem is, what Filipowski specifically, his problem is, look at the other side for Wake with Carr. How many times did Carr dunk the ball in this game? He had
handful of times.
He had 6 field goals. I bet you 3 of them were dunks.
So speaking of balls not going in, I forgot what the stat was on layups that they missed. A lot of balls just rolled off the rim for Wake.
Carr, a Delaware transfer, is built like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yet he has the mentality that I'm going up and I'm throwing this thing in.
Mm-hmm.
When Filipowski goes to the rim, he doesn't try to dunk the ball. He seeks the contact and then falls under the basket.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have to go to the rim, grab the rim, and protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're 6'10".
Yeah.
Why are you falling into the third row?
And then
that's bad.
And then he comes out of that his face
it's almost I got
hit in the head.
Player. I'm just like,
yeah. And there's been conversation.
So there's that. That's why I think people will assign soft to him.
So I was talking to,
but that's not soft. It's just not smart.
I was talking to the fellas, the fellas, if you will, because they know who they are. They know who they are.
AP and young Connor.
Young Connor, Marks, the wise man, the fellas. Okay.
Yeah.
Rod, the fellas. And, because they're there all the time. Right. And I forgot who it was. I think actually, I want to say it was Beard. He's like, yeah, these are things that you don't see on television. where John's like trying to have this conversation with Filipowski in a game, like probably about what you're saying.
Go to the
rim.
Yes.
And it was Aaron who had actually gotten that quote from Filipowski over the weekend about the face, right? Like, yeah, sometimes my face is giving away too much of what I'm thinking and things like that. And it could be an overthinking situation for Kyle Filipowski. So I don't think soft is the label. Like a couple of weeks ago, or it was last week, Chris Mack on Field of 68, that podcast, straight up said, like, they don't got those dogs in them.
It's like Tyler said before, they've got talent. I don't think that they are dogs. I don't think that they play. Just think about like a Houston. Just the way those guys play and how hard they play. I don't get that when I watch Duke. And, having played against them, whether it was when I was an assistant at Wake Forest, head coach at Louisville, I always felt like Duke's intensity was at another level, and I'm sure you saw that, Tyler, when you played, and obviously a huge rivalry game. But I don't see that type of intensity. I don't know if it's the makeup of those kids. I think they're talented. But until they play with a little bit more intensity, for me, I don't see them as being a threat to win a national championship.
So again, that was Chris Mack on Field of 68 last week talking about, and mind you, these are Duke squads that are winning games. I just gave you the record. They're 19-5. They're a top 10 team. They're second place in the ACC. And what Chris Mack said, what Jay Williams said, I looked at Jay Williams' mentions last night, and a bunch of Duke fans are on board with what Jay Williams is saying. Like, that's a soft group. That's not what Coach K would say. When I think now we're romanticizing some of the teams that came out of the Coach K era, okay? You brought up that Austin Rivers team as a prime example of it.
Shire did the exact thing last night that Coach K would do. He's trying to hug up his team. He's trying to love up his team. He's trying to give his team confidence. Because even though it's 2024, and most of these guys will just only see things on reels and the snap face and all these other things, and nobody reads the paper, and no one's going to go to them, hey, did you see what Coach said in the paper?
Mm-hmm.
No. But you still have to send a message to your team. What he's saying after last night is, I believe in you. Yeah. And I want you to believe in yourself because you can be better. Listen, the way that they played last night, Duke couldn't shoot the ball either.
No.
So
that's been a problem for them, by the way.
Proctor was going through something. I don't know if he was throwing the up. I don't know what he was doing, but he was kind of like leaving the bench, and he was out of it. He was out of it. He had no points. He missed all of his shots. He was no factor in this game.
Yeah, he fell on the back of his head because that happened in front of me, and he laid on the court for a bit, and that was pretty much a wrap for Tyrese Proctor.
And I think last year, what unlocked Duke was Proctor playing at a higher level, lifted Filipowski, lifted Lively, and put them in a position where they could pay some things back. I don't disagree with what Chris Mack is saying in terms of intensity. I don't disagree in terms of like some of the parts are there. It's getting late though for Duke to try to put this thing together.
Okay.
Which is exactly what Kay would have said after last night, because he knows what they have and he knows what they don't have. And for them to be their best, Proctor can't be a net zero.
This was a knock on Shire last year, that his demeanor called into question a level of intensity for the team, and whether or not Duke could get pushed around. And then he lost his shit with what happened at Virginia, and you saw how it went from there.
Shouts to Brian Kersey, who was there last night.
He was, it's just hell of a night for the officials with Brian Kersey there, by the way. I think they just changed another foul to another. I think Reed just got his 6th foul that was assessed to him, right?
Most random.
Just the random shit last night.
Willy-nilly.
So, yet last year there was a sentiment that was making the rounds about Duke personality, do they have it, etc., which came from the coach. And last night, with the officiating and everything else, Shire kind of snapped. And from that point on, Duke kind of turned it on a little bit there too. Shire was asked about it after the game, and I thought his response to your point about Coach K kind of loving him up was on point, and I think there's a larger point to be made after this.
Just emotional, just emotional. Like, I don't think this group, and look, that's on us to prove it. We'll be right there at the end of this thing. I'm just telling you guys. Like, I believe in these guys so much. And we've been through a lot in the first 2 years. Like, this is my first 2 years. The support of the crowd has been incredible. And this is a key game for us. It was a key moment. And I was fired up because Mark Mitchell made a heck of a play, on the sideline. He had great hands. And again, just like I don't expect our guys to be perfect, officiating is never going to be perfect. That has nothing to do with it.
So that was Jon Scheyer after the game. And that sequence and how we talked about it after the game leads to my larger point about Duke going forward and watching a coach come into his own in real time, right? We only know the final form of Coach K, not the Coach K who got there
and almost got fired.
Right? We don't know.
We're going to play this way. We're only going to play this way. Everyone, you should play zone.
So there's this, I feel like John, in our conversations with him, hearing him in postgame, watching him coach, is trying to have this very calm demeanor. We're not going to get too high. We're not going to get too low. We're going to be really cool. I'm going to do my breathing techniques, and we're going to find a way to win. I get it.
It's a generational shift. Kevin Keats talks about this all the time. The things that people over 40 care about and the things that people under 30 care about are different.
And he is young. He's in his 30s. So he's not of the same group as us. Okay. However, there is a direct correlation in 2 years now of evidence that I've seen. I know it's not a lot of body of work, but I've seen it now 2 years in a row. When John finally shows a little bit of he played for K. He won a championship. He knows he has to get to a particular level as a player. So when I see it happen as a coach, I go, aha, there it is. And maybe the team goes, okay. So calm, cool, even keel is no longer calm, cool, even keel. All right, let's go. Okay. And I think that's I get why he doesn't want to, but I want to see more of it. Right. Because I get it. He doesn't want to let this thing eat him the way it almost ate K. So I get where he's coming from. And maybe I'm doing way too much, press row psychoanalysis of Jon Scheyer, but I don't think it's lost on anybody that when he loses it, the team responds. And I'll be curious to see if maybe they're getting all the stuff. Hey, this guy thinks you're soft. Hey, Jay Williams just went on ESPN and said, you got to let the big dogs eat. Will that get through the team? We shall see.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to Enovana for sponsoring Housekeeping. You can buy a digital gift card to Enovana. So if you want
tomorrow's the day. Let's do this.
You want a last minute Valentine's Day gift, head on over to enovana.com, ENOVANA.com, because you know what's better than flowers? You know what's better than chocolates?
A clean bathroom.
Hell freaking yes, man, because you don't want to get behind that toilet. You know what you've done to that toilet. All right? So go to enovana.com, ENOVANA.com. We dropped those new Breaking T t-shirts yesterday. Shout out to the Virginia Tech people that don't like the placement of the dot.
Wait, what?
Hey, man, I know it's somewhere out there in the southwest corner of Virginia. All right? I know it's somewhere out there. Okay? But we're not using the map.
No, hang on a second. We included you on the map.
No, but
just so you know, you weren't on the original logo, people.
But look, I'm being silly here, but there are some Virginia Tech people who are like, there's no way Virginia Tech is that southwest in Virginia. I'm like, yeah, but the dot has to be visible, and like there's only so much space. But you get it. You knew it was Virginia Tech, right? Okay, then. Wow. Like, the little 3, the little triangle, it's actually not how it's really set up either. Just saying, like, you shouldn't be using our t-shirt map to find Blacksburg. Like, where do I go? How do I get to Lane Stadium?
Triangulate.
Well, I'm looking at the Ovies and Giglio map, and I don't see it. I don't think it's here.
I just need to turn left.
Anyway, go to breakingt.com/OG. Go buy that shirt. Shout out to people who have already purchased the shirt. I've gotten a couple of emails saying,
it's an auto purchase, man. Come on.
Seen it. I ordered mine. Hopefully I'll have it in time for the ACC tournament. You mentioned Matt Davis with State Farm. You were his buddy last night at Cameron Indoor Stadium. He can be your buddy and save you a lot of money. InsureGardner.com. Call him directly at 919-779-8277. And did you hit the breeze through on the way to Duke or on the way back to Duke? Will you need it today?
On the way back, I did. Also, I saw Adam at the game last night.
Nice.
Did not realize he also had Duke tickets.
I love it.
Adam knows what's going on. They know what's going on at Breeze to take care of all of your tailgate needs and all of my dark roast coffee needs.
Now, I tend to avoid day after Super Bowl media, because anybody can podcast on a Monday. Certainly anybody can podcast on a Monday after the Super Bowl. You know, I don't need to get an idea of where things were. Everybody watched it. Everybody knows. I don't need that crap. Now, on a Tuesday, I am fascinated by...
It's a lot harder.
I'm fascinated by how do you stretch Super Bowl coverage after you've gotten through your favorite commercials, you know, this moment, that moment, where's Patrick Mahomes and the GOAT and everything else? And there were two distinct storylines that were coming out of this game, and from what I could tell this morning. One of them is very football-y, and the other one is more pop culture. Where would you like to start?
Pop culture.
The parasocial relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce has boiled over, has absolutely boiled over. And if I sound like I'm psychoanalyzing a coach from press row, some of y'all need to go outside and touch grass after Travis Kelce got in Andy Reid's face in the Super Bowl about wanting the ball and bumping into a kindly old man who looks like a walrus and just wants his nuggies. And people, I'm not making this up, got online and were like, Taylor, you need to leave. That's a red flag. He has anger issues. I'd walk away. What's wrong with you? No, seriously, what's wrong with you? I don't want to be a gatekeeper here, but it's very much is this your first time watching a football game? Is this your first time watching a championship level event where the stakes are high and emotions are running over? A very violent football game? I digress. That's the pop culture storyline. Go outside and touch grass. The parasocial relationship has boiled over. Please, enough about that. The football side of things has been Kyle Shanahan in the overtime. I told you this was going to be a thing yesterday. And the part that I'm actually having a hard time struggling with, there is the inevitability of Patrick Mahomes, and it might not matter what you did. Whether you got the ball first, you deferred, XYZ, it doesn't matter, because at that point, Patrick Mahomes had taken over. You talked about it yesterday. There's a patience about Patrick Mahomes that has derailed just about everybody along the way in the last 5 years, outside of, you know, when they lose to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, right? But I'm not quite sure that, while I think the idea of wanting a third possession and the analytics tell you it's a better play because you did what you did and they do what they do, and then now you have the final possession, not against Patrick Mahomes. I think that's my takeaway. He is inevitable. But the part that I'm having a really hard time struggling with, the part that I'm like, okay, come on, y'all. We have enough history to say that Kyle Shanahan's never going to win the big one. Or that the 28-3 is solely a Kyle Shanahan. Like, it's now gotten to the point where he's the one who's responsible for 28-3.
Okay, no, hold on a second. Are you saying Kyle Shanahan won't win the big one?
There is a sentiment that he is not going to win the big one. Look at his track record. I was
actually thinking about this.
Okay.
Do you know who was, for all of those years, the Wile E. Coyote to Bill Belichick's Roadrunner? Andy Reid, who now has 3 Super Bowls because he has a generational quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But Brock Purdy, bless your heart, you're not a generational quarterback.
No.
And you know, Kyle Shanahan's got another 30 years in the NFL if he'd liked it, by the way.
Yeah.
So to sit here and say, oh, it'll never happen for him. There were plenty of people saying the same thing about Andy Reid when he was dragging Donovan McNabb around. Okay. So you don't know how it's going to change for him when you know football the way that Reid does, the way that Shanahan does. The 49ers did not lose the football game because they took the ball first in overtime. The 49ers didn't lose the football game because Kyle Juszczyk, who went to freaking Harvard, didn't know the rules to overtime.
Right.
Okay? That had no effect on the outcome of the football game. The 49ers lost the football game because in the red zone on 3rd and 4, they could not convert. Meanwhile, the Chiefs had 4th down plays and other 3rd down plays on their touchdown drive that they did convert. It does not have to be more than this.
No, it has to.
It's not an episode of SUV where we have to solve the crime in 35 minutes.
SVU.
Okay? That's not what this is.
So I agree with you. And I find it weird. Again, every Super Bowl with that many people who watch it, you have to have your easy storylines to grab onto. And the one
how much easier is it than the Chiefs made a play and
No.
the 49ers didn't.
No, because you need a coach punching bag. You just referenced it with Andy Reid. Okay. We need a coach punching bag. We need a guy who's so talented, but he's never won the big one. So we can call into question whether or not what he's doing is right. Okay. And the part that I have a hard problem with is I'm listening to ESPN radio last night on my drive back from Cameron Indoor, and they're talking about 28-3 as though it was Kyle Shanahan as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons that night. He was the offensive coordinator. So who do you assign a 28-3 blown lead to? The OC, who is in charge of one aspect of the game, or the head coach, who was Dan Quinn at the time of the Atlanta Falcons blowing that 28-3 lead? But in the history, the lore of Kyle Shanahan, right down to that Peter King story, it's like, that is your loss. That loss is being hung on you. So Shanahan, I think, is getting kind of unfairly dumped on for what's happened in the Super Bowl, which, again, if you really wanted to bang on Kyle Shanahan, it's not about overtime. It's not about 28-3, which is not completely in his control because, again, there's a head coach above him. It's the fact that they've had how many cracks at trying to get the quarterback right, and they've missed. These skill position players are not going to all be there, okay? You're not going to have Christian McCaffrey forever. You're not going to have Deebo Samuel forever. You're not going to have George Kittle forever, all right? They got lucky with Brock Purdy that he's able to do what he's able to do. But, I mean, they whiffed on the Trey Lance thing, man. Whiffed. They probably stuck on it.
They gave up premium assets and whiffed on that, yes.
They whiffed on that and survived, okay? Yeah. And with Jimmy G, they took it as far as they could take it. At least they recognized that, man, this is as far as we can take it with Jimmy G. So I do wonder if this offseason, and I think Kyle Shanahan knows this because there was still a conversation about potentially getting Tom Brady, all right?
Right.
If they also wonder if, hey, man,
it's
maybe this Brock Purdy thing is as far as we could take it.
I don't think they lost the football game because of Brock Purdy either. You know what's wild to me? What? When we talk about losses and how we assign them and we try to predict things.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
Trent Williams is the 49ers left tackle. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those penalties in the first half on Trent Williams, like if you really want to get into, if you want to list the reasons why the 49ers lost this football game, the muffed punt is number one on the list. The special teams mistakes, the missed extra point, the blocked extra point. That's number one on the list. Number two, Christian McCaffrey's fumble in the first half when they're going in to score a touchdown and really assert control of the football game. Number three, your Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame left tackle single-handedly sabotages a drive while you're sitting here in a position to extend your lead and put more game pressure on the Chiefs. But how is one supposed to lucidly predict that Trent Williams is going to have back-to-back penalties that only he can control?
Right.
That you can't.
Right.
You can't. How are you supposed to predict that George Kittle, while diving on a fourth down conversion, is going to hurt his shoulder, go back to the locker room, and while he's getting his pain injection, his backup is going to be called for a holding penalty?
Mm-hmm.
You can't predict any of these things.
I'm with you on that, man.
That's not coaching either.
I'm with you on that. One other Super Bowl leftover. Ratings were bonkers. 120
real ratings, not like the fake new impressions or fucking TikTok, whatever's.
Man, ratings got you fired up. Dropping F-bombs.
Well, no, you can't.
No, I'm with you on that.
Super Bowl 16 is the gold standard. You can't be messing with Super Bowl 16 without apples to apples.
This is key. 120 million viewers watched CBS. It's the largest audience ever on a single network. 120 million people. When you start getting into your Fugazi numbers, as you like to call them, most streamed Super Bowl ever, well, of course.
Sure.
And it also led to a record-setting audience on Paramount. And at some point, I think when you added them all up, more than 200 million viewers watched all or part of the Super Bowl across all of their networks.
Okay, so bottom line, when I see a list of the highest rated things of all time, when it's like the MASH episode,
you're going to get
Super Bowl 16. This is ahead of it.
Yes. Even the moon landing.
Interesting.
Yes. You know why?
It says too much about our country, but okay.
You know why?
Well, there was more TVs and more people now. No. What?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, just Taylor Swift.
Just Taylor Swift.
Yeah, not
it's that simple, man.
Yeah.
Which, if there's one takeaway, it's not, sometimes you don't have to overcomplicate this stuff, okay?
You're right.
It's Taylor Swift. Hard stop. Which, my one hope and wish as we get out of this segment, my one hope and wish is that this Super Bowl with Taylor Swift, with these ratings, a record-setting ratings of 120 million people who watch this damn game, all right, puts an end to news cycles that are created from social media sentiment that are clearly shit posts, okay? Stop giving oxygen to people online who are not coming from the best place. Grifters, people who have never watched this stuff before, or my personal favorite, oh, you found 4 people bitching about something online? That doesn't make it a story. You know what I saw at Cameron Indoor Stadium last night?
You saw my Deeks.
I saw your Deeks, and I saw a home field Big Four tournament champs, Duke T.
Now they're just trolling us.
I know, right? What's going on? Where's the state one? But I saw a Duke one last night. Hope they use that promo code OG23.
Save yourself 15%.
Yeah,
smart.
I didn't track that person down, but I hope they use the promo code OG23 to save 15% off their order. Just in time for the tournament, you got Duke gear, NC State gear, and NC State gear. All fresh stuff. It's all out there. It's all great. It's all at homefieldapparel.com. Also, big thanks to Hometown Realty. Check them out online, myhtr.com. The interest rates are coming back down, which causes people to go, maybe it is time to sell a house. Maybe it is time to buy a new house now that the rates are coming down. Get it before the frenzy, Joe.
I was going to say, get ahead of the rush, get ahead of the frenzy, get your information all lined up. Go to the experts. Hometown Realty, myhtr.com. 6 locations, more than 250 agents. You want to be in the new construction? MyHTR has you covered.
Also, big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer. Check them out online, wh.lawyer. You bought that house. You refinance. You got to take it to close. Whitaker and Hamer can handle that for you. Locations across North Carolina. Check them out online at wh.lawyer. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, a man that will never lose his stick. He is Mike Maniscalco, Valley Sports, Kane's voice. What up, Mike?
That's good.
Don't be so sure about that, Joe.
Well, you get that up in there in age, man. Might lose. What was this? King Missile? Detachable penis? That was the name of the song.
Yeah.
It gets lost sometimes. All right. Let's process what we saw before we talk about what we could see tonight. That Devils game was not, I was not planning on attending a game that was going to be as intense as that game was. And
use the words, Mike. Use the words.
Come on, use them. What kind of game was that?
It's playoff hockey.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Once we pass the All-Star game, gentlemen, it is playoff hockey.
It's allowed.
All right, let's I guess this is where the frustration of watching the Carolina Hurricanes can kind of come into play, because they shot a lot. And this is a thing that the Canes will do. They will shoot a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that pucks are going behind the net. And I know Rod can say, hey, I like the way we played. We count on these things kind of breaking through eventually for us. But those are the kind of games that give people pause and then turn their eyes over to the goaltending situation to be like, man, if they ain't scoring, you got to back it up. So I feel like there's a lot of positive to take away and also some concern to take away from that game on Saturday.
Well, this is the way that they play now. And I don't want to, try to sit here and go hockey 101, but one of the schools of thoughts is high volume shooting teams. I mean, I can tell you, and the thought process behind it is the more pucks you put on net, the averages, the numbers will tell you, well, you should score more goals. Okay, that's the principle to it. Well, that started to evolve about the last year or two, where teams have gone away from, we're not going to go high volume shots. We're going to try to create as many high volume danger chances. Now, whatever those may be, you can have different, sentiment on, is it in between the dots? Is it right in front of the goaltender? Where are those high danger chances coming from? But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it exposes, if you're the Hurricanes and you don't score a goal, hey, what's going to happen at the other end of the rink? the Canes have enough faith in their goaltending, be it Antti Ranta, Pyotr Kochetkov, Freddie Anderson, that we've seen in the past. That's the way they're going to play, and they're fine with it. The one thing that happens though is, and Tripp brings this one up a lot, and I agree with it, that if you put some shots on goalies early and they start making saves, they feel good about themselves. So you can run into, when you hear that it's a hot goalie, sometimes you can create that hot goalie. You become Dr. Frankenstein. You put the pucks on a guy, he starts feeling good because he starts to see it. He's going to make saves, and you go from there. But, I think what everybody should have walked out of that game against New Jersey with, Joe, is, okay, we've got a guy who, when he's right, he's going to make all the saves too. And that was a big game for Pyotr Kochetkov, and an even bigger post game for Pyotr Kochetkov.
Who's teaching him English, man?
That's locker room talk, boys. Let's face it. You come over here, you pick up. It's like anything. You pick up the language with what's around there. I learned French from watching the Smurfs when I was a kid because I got Quebec TV that came into my household. So,
I mean, like, the funny thing is, Kochetkov and what he said after the game's like, and we're a podcast, so we can say it, but I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, "Fuck boys, go score, I go home." And I felt that, like sometimes you hear lyrics and you're like, man, that speaks to me. And when I saw that quote, I'm like, damn, Kochetkov really speaking to me here. Like, look, man, just do your job. I do my job. We go home. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can run down the list right now. Bob Dylan, Neil Young, Pyotr Kochetkov, lyricists who hit Joe Ovius' heart.
And don't forget Taylor Swift. Don't forget Taylor Swift.
How can we not?
I mean, come on. Style hits me in the feels every single time I hear it.
Well, you do got that James Dean daydream look in your eye.
Thank you, Mike.
I think Rod logically, we know the result of the New Jersey game.
Mm-hmm.
But I got there and I was slightly surprised that Spence didn't start. Slightly. But I also thought to myself, well, the right play for the coach is to put Kochetkov out there. And if he struggles, then you get rid of him. You bench. Mm-hmm. But if he starts and plays the way that he did, now you've maybe saved his season. So I could see the thought process kind of working. But we will see Spence at some point again, right? Like, we're not just going to save him on the ice for Boston games.
No. Well, I mean, I think he can only play against Boston this year. He's played against them 4 times. With a back-to-back on this road trip, you'll see him. And the question is, will he play against Arizona or will he play against Vegas? And I think that tonight's going to dictate that. So
you're going to be back in Vegas?
Back in Vegas.
Look at Mike. He's got this all planned out. They're going to be like, hey, you're back.
I also,
boys, for work.
Oh, well,
fair enough.
Spending the night there, so because it's a back-to-back. So
right. Okay.
Not leaving right after the game, and I plan on visiting some of the places where I had left some money, and maybe they'll give it back to me.
See if you can find it. It's stashed somewhere, right?
I also need to be careful what I say about the Hurricanes and their goalies, because I said, barring a disaster, and then we get the Colorado sequence, which was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to speak anything into existence.
No, you know what? I'm going to go the other way with that.
Okay.
Joe, because it could have been. And then the disaster part for me is that Antti Ranta gets hurt. But then Kochetkov comes back into the third period and doesn't allow a goal. And then he carries that over into the New Jersey game. I believe that. So the disaster is the injury, but this is where the team is a little bit more comfortable now because they have Spencer Martin, the guy who's played NHL games, to give you that depth as that backup. Whereas if we're in this situation 4 weeks ago, you've got to turn to Yanni Peretz, and nothing against him. He just doesn't have NHL experience. And, I mean, he might be 23 and win a national championship, but that's a little bit different than – being 23 and having played, 24, 25 games in the NHL.
If I was a better writer, I would weave a narrative about how important that sequence was for the Hurricanes and ultimately how this season goes. Like, I mean, I don't think it's a exaggeration to say we were on the brink of them losing all hope in Kochetkov. That was the type of sequence that was, to me anyway. Colorado.
I mean, it's one of those things where now that we're in this room I can't tell you that you're wrong, but he's a pretty resilient young guy. He really is. And I think we forget he has not played a high number of games in his career, period, going back to the KHL and here. I think that he is going to be able to shrug off things more easily than other goaltenders. I just really think that he's got that DNA of, oh, well, I did that. Well, whatever. It might affect him for that game, but I don't think it would affect him the next game, the way that he just goes about his business. He doesn't strike me in the limited conversations I've had with him as his English has improved. He doesn't strike me as somebody who sits there and worries that he allowed a bad goal in the game. He worries that he wants to play the next game and how he'll play the next game. But he's not carrying, oh God, I let a shot from outside the blue line that shouldn't be a goal in the nets. I don't think that carries around with him.
It's funny. I didn't intend this conversation to be based completely on goaltending, but in a lot of ways, when we talk about the Canes, and we'll get out of here on this, Rod has said it. We've said it. I didn't want to believe it at first. I didn't want to think it was that simple, but Rod's been hammering that point that yes, it is that simple. You've been hammering that point. Yes, it is that simple. So going forward, and to Joe's point about confidence with Kochetkov and how important that game was on Saturday, I do feel like, back-to-backs aside, just let Kochetkov take it. I mean, I get that the season, there's not that much season left in the grand scheme of things, but I feel like at this point, with the uncertainty with Raanta, the uncertainty with Anderson, just let him take it and see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what the organization wanted to do. I think we were on that before he got concussed in that Anaheim game. Like he was going to have the net and he was going to run with it. And he was going to be the guy getting 4 out of every 5 as far as starts go. So we'll see if that happens. But at the same time, too, I don't think that they want to, when you say go take it, I don't think they want to push it to where it breaks. And you have to give guys a little bit of rest here and there. But I think right now, if the tandem is going to be, and Rod said it's going to be weeks for Antti Raanta, and we still have no timeline for Frederik Andersen. It's great that he's back on the ice, but there's no timeline there. I think that you are going to see right now with this current setup for the next few weeks, it'll be Kochetkov 4 or 5 with Spencer Martin as the backup.
Mike Maniscalco, Canes play-by-play, Bally Sports. We appreciate the time as always. Enjoy Dallas. Enjoy Phoenix while they're there.
Yeah.
And of course, Vegas.
Oh, can't wait to go to Mullet. I swear, it is a great experience, guys. For the fans and for the broadcasters. For the players. Yeah.
All right, man. We'll talk to you next week.
You got it.
Big thanks to Mike Maniscalco, as always, for hanging out with us. And big thanks to Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority, bundling. They are on it. They're ahead of the game. Everybody's bundling now. You know who's been bundling your services? Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority. Check them out, bugsbite.com.
The OG. Save yourself some money, protect your house. It's a win-win for everyone. Bugsbite.com.
Valentine's Day is tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Wednesday morning, hey, Valentine's Day is today, because I know some of you do not listen to the podcast until the next day. Totally get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it. We appreciate you catching up on the podcast. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday morning and you're going, oh crap, it's Valentine's Day, may I suggest the gift of meat on Valentine's Day? Go to Butcher's Market, go get just the tip, signature steak tips. It's all you need. It's got sides.
You've got this one all covered by yourself.
You get everything you need for a wonderful Valentine's Day dinner. Okay? Head on over to the Butcher's Market and enjoy the gift of meat. Let's rock!
Hello, Cleveland.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, Mitch Northam. He is our official women's college basketball correspondent. Mitch, what's going on, man?
I do what I can, and I'm happy to be introduced by AC/DC or whatever the OG version of that was.
That was Brian Schott, Nice Price, just riffing, baby. riffing for
Excellent.
us. And if you watched it on YouTube, you could see it is the occult imagery of the triangle. All right, you've
Triangle
got
media.
you got
Triangle
the
media.
blood feud triangle media. And the reason why we're bringing you on is because did NC State break North Carolina? Because what do we got? 4 losses in a row, and they've suddenly forgotten how to shoot, especially this last game against Duke.
Yeah, I don't think NC State broke them. They actually, I mean, NC State is one of the closer games they've played over this stretch. I think it's really a problem that started at home against Miami on January 25th. They won that game by 5, but it was another game where they led by 19 points, and that lead just kind of evaporated. I think Carolina mostly just has a problem closing games. They have a problem playing with big leads for whatever the reason is. And yeah, kind of in crunch time, there seems to be just a lack of, hey, what are we doing? And a plan, there's just a lack of connectivity there. And I'm not sure, what the reason for that is. But yeah, in crunch time against Duke the other day at the end of regulation, last couple possessions, Deja Kelly hardly touches the ball. You try to get a shot under the rim for Alyssa Utsby, but she's having a really tough, scoring day. I think she went 2 of 14 in that game. But yeah, I think, the big problem for Carolina, and it's really at this crucial moment for them at this point of the season, you got 6 regular season games left. I think, this was a team that came in with big aspirations this season. And I think the opportunity for them to host NCAA tournament games, that getting that top 16 seed, I think that's gone. So now you kind of need to sort of regroup and figure out, all right, how do we kind of get our mojo back and try to end the regular season on a high note, get some momentum going into Greensboro and then the NCAA tournament.
A lot of talk on the men's side about how many teams will make the NCAA tournament. Mitch, how many from the women's side are we looking at?
Yeah, luckily for the ACC, they do not have the same perception problem in women's basketball as they do in men's. The ACC might get the most teams in the NCAA tournament this year. They might get 9, which last year they had 8. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty packed field. I would say, ESPN usually comes out with their projections on Tuesday. I think the last, projection that Charlie Cream had over there was getting 9 teams in. Yeah, I would say the ACC is probably the deepest in terms of just like quantity of teams that you're going to get into the tournament, where the Pac-12 might be the most top heavy. We might have like 4 or 5 Pac-12 teams hosting. But yeah, Carolina is definitely right now still a lock to get in. Luckily for them, they have kind of 2 get-right games coming up. They're going to play the 2 worst teams in the league back-to-back. They're going to play Pitt at home on Thursday and then at Wake Forest on Sunday, and go from there. But yeah, NC State, I think is probably still in the best position to host games. Virginia Tech is right there. They've won a couple in a row now. And Louisville, despite losing on a really bad call the other day, I think they're in the mix to host as well. Yeah, Carolina, I think, is just fighting for seeding at this point. Can they get as good as a 5, or are they going to slip back to an 8 or a 9?
So I went to the Play for K game. Obviously, State played really well for about 35 minutes against Louisville. They ended up winning the game anyway, even though Louisville, I thought, was really good in the fourth quarter. You could obviously see their talent. This is Westmore's best backcourt, right? Like, and number one, that's my statement from watching one game. But where did Isaiah James come from? Because she's a baller.
Yeah, I definitely think offensively, yeah, this is their best backcourt. Like, you don't have like that lockdown defender that he had on those, those teams with Kai Crutchfield, who you could just throw her at, the other team's best 3-point shooter and as them. But yeah, this is it's kind of, like I said, I think the last time I was on it, they're at their best when they're really running and they have all these interchangeable pieces like Sanaya Rivers, Isaiah James, Madison Hayes. Are they point guards? Are they shooting guards? It doesn't really matter because they can all kind of do the same things. They can shoot, they can dribble, they can handle. And Isaiah James, yeah, she was on this team. She was a freshman on on that NC State team that went to the Elite Eight that lost up at UConn, in double OT. So she was kind of exposed to, I think, the best that NC State's been over the past 10 years, and got to play with some of those really good guards that I talked about, like Kai Crutchfield and Reina Perez. Her name escaped me there for a moment, but yeah, she's been awesome. She's I believe she's from like the Norfolk, Virginia area, and in this season, her junior year, she's really kind of blossomed. We saw some glimpses of it last year. But yeah, and she is really, there's been times this season, Louisville was an example of this, Virginia Tech as well, where NC State kind of has trouble finding the scoring flow, and Isaiah James is like, it's fine, I'll score 10 this quarter, and just kind of carries them. Yeah.
Who can we talk to at the NCAA to get the men to play quarters? I enjoyed the quarters format tremendously.
I'm shocked it's actually taken this long.
Like, what are we doing? I don't understand.
It should happen. I don't get it.
This is the only version of the sport that doesn't use quarters.
It's been brought up for conversation. I don't know why they just haven't approved it yet. It makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there still a Gavitt in charge on the men's side?
There's got to be, right?
No, yeah,
there's a rule.
That's a rule. There's a Gavitt there still.
I think it's great for the pace of the game. On the women's side, it's been really good ever since they made the switch. Whenever that was, 6 years ago now, or something like that. I can't remember how long it's been, but yeah, I think it's just great. Yeah, for the pace of the game, and less timeouts and kind of splitting things up. I really enjoy the quarters as well. I hope they never go back.
Mitch Northam, check him out online. You got what? I'm trying to remember all the places. NPR, WUNC, USA Today, and of course, an AP Top 25 Women's College Basketball voter. Mitch, we appreciate the time as always, keeping us on our toes when it comes to women's college basketball. Now, one more thing before we get out of here, and I think this is really important when we talk about college basketball. Officiating, nobody likes it anywhere, men's and women's, right? Just ask Walls in Louisville, right?
That's right. It's not been good. So real quick, I'll explain what happened. There's like a couple of seconds left in Louisville's game against Syracuse. Louisville is up by 1, and they have a foul to give. And Syracuse has the ball. So, Louisville goes to foul. Olivia Cochran, as players do at the end of games, she wraps Deja Fair up. Instead of just calling a common foul, the ACC refs determined that was a intentional foul. And they immediately sent Deja Fair to the line, and she made 2 free throws with 2.3 seconds left. And Syracuse won 73-72. And Jeff Walls got on the game was at Syracuse. So Jeff Walls does, post-game media with the Louisville folks back home on a Zoom, and he gets on the Zoom and just immediately goes into that Zoom knowing that he's going to get a fine. Here's the quote. "It was a god-awful call. It's absolutely terrible officiating. They should be embarrassed. Someone has to start holding the officials accountable. That was the call. That call was the worst call I've seen in my 29 years of coaching. If we're going to start calling that, every foul at the end of the game when a team has to foul is intentional."
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Sometimes coaches have to just say it.
Yeah.
Yep. And be curious to see what they fine him, because they're going to have to fine him. I'll be curious to see what or a reprimand. Who knows? Reprimands are all.
Don't do that again.
Reprimands are very, very hot this year in the ACC.
Right. A good finger wagging from Charlotte.
All right, Mitch. We'll talk to you later, man. One other ACC related note before we get out of here. Did you see the ACC kickoff schedule has been released, Joe?
I did, and I took note of it only because I thought you were kidding with me when you had said that Jim Phillips insists on his doctorate degree being included in his title.
This bad boy is on the graphic that they put out yesterday. I've got this up on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. So can we have a meeting?
Sure.
Let's have a meeting. This kickoff used to be a day.
Oh, there's waiting for the Wolves at the. Why are they putting the Wolves and the Heels together on the same day?
Right. Who made the schedule? I got questions on who made this damn schedule.
So
right?
We don't need to be there on the 23rd.
Well,
Cal, Pitt, Stanford.
So here's the question I have.
Virginia Tech. Do I like any of them?
It's the middle of the
Pitt. I like the Pitt guy.
It's the middle of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Narduzzi. Is that who you're thinking about?
Yeah, because he's the one. Oh, you sound like a state fan.
Oh, okay.
Just be Clemson. It's no big deal.
It's the middle of the summer, so it's not like we have anything going on.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So the question is, do you want to go to all 4 days to this?
I don't see a reason for us to be there on July 23rd.
So you want to go
I'm not
Monday?
being a jerk.
No, I know. So you want to go Monday and drive back? Or do you just want to use Tuesdays a day to hit some breweries in Charlotte instead of going to ACC
play some
Kickoff?
golf? I got to know somebody in Charlotte who can get me on a golf course.
All right, let's do that. So that's question number 1 is, do we stay the entire week? I mean, I'll stay at Nada's. I'll crash there.
Yeah, I got friends in Charlotte.
Okay, then we can do that. All right, so that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is we're not going to show up Tuesday, is what you're saying, because there's no point.
No.
California, Pitt, Stanford, Virginia Tech. Okay.
No, that would be the awkward time filler. Hey, can you go sit at it's been done before. Like, hey, can you go sit at this table and talk to the players from
Wednesday we'll talk to Duke and Wake Forest, obviously, right?
Yeah.
No Jeff Hafley, so there's no reason to talk to Boston College anymore.
No.
He won't even text you back.
Nope.
And then they smush everybody on Thursday with Clemson, North Carolina, NC State, and Syracuse. Poor Syracuse. But here's
78 outlets up there that cover them. We'll be there though.
So there's my issue. I got 2 issues with the scheduling. Why did you put Clemson, North Carolina, NC State on the last freaking day? Number 1. Number 2, who thought it was a great idea to put Florida State and Jim Phillips, PhD, on the same day?
Maybe that's what they wanted.
So it's really, they want Drew Weatherford like lurking like Sting in the WCW, waiting for his chance, right?
Yes.
Like Jim Phillips starts his press conference, and then all of a sudden, like all Florida State media is like, Jim. I don't know, glass breaking. I need this wrestled up. I mean, actually, the wrestling is wrong because Shane McMahon's kid just committed to North Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm now old enough that Shane McMahon's kid is at UNC.
Shane O'Mac.
Jeez, man. I wonder if he talks to his kid when he drives by PNC Arena and goes, son, that's the place where I jumped from atop the scaffolding. It was amazing.
Wild, man.
Anyway, so there's your note. I just wanted to make sure like we're cool with going. And yeah, Jim Phillips, PhD.
Yeah, I thought you made that up.
No, I did not make that up. That's a real thing. That is a real thing from Jim Phillips. I want to be there at least Monday because I want to see the Florida State people swarm on Jim Phillips to talk about stuff.
They'll leave it to us to ask the hard questions.
Absolutely. No. You telling me like Corey Clark and Ira and those guys. Maybe Bud Elliott makes a rare press conference appearance. We get old school Bud.
That'd be good.
I mean, if we get old school Bud, I am in, man.
You know,
we're
up to the task.
Of course we are.
Podcast is calling.
It's time to get out of here on some Hey Joe questions.
Let's get out of here on some Hey Joe questions.
So yesterday you told a story about being in the Rams locker room.
Yes.
And seeing football players are just built different. And
Yes.
I think you mentioned that from Christian McCaffrey and when he was doing the siren and things like that, right? And we had a couple listeners. I pointed out, somebody said, man, that story about Joe and the Rams locker room football players made me think about times where I'd run into football players.
Yeah.
I said, look, all I know is that when they trotted out a freshman Mario Williams after a game at NC State.
Yeah.
Dude's 18.
Talk about different, built different. Mario, Super Mario.
18 years old, man, coming out for a post game. I'm like, that is not an 18-year-old. No. It's like that woman on the plane. You are not a real person. So this guy on Threads, I was next to that guy in a food line once, Mario Williams on Western Boulevard. That is still, to this day, the largest human I have ever been in a room with. Good Lord. From Matt Super Sundays, it literally ran into Julius Peppers once when he was at UNC. And then he came into the Oyster Bar during the offseason before going to Chicago. I get it.
Yeah. And that's funny because those guys are huge, right?
Yeah.
Todd Light, though, was like, at the time, he was like 32, 33. And he was just like, there was just not a single ounce of fat on the man's body.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here going, how do you do that? Like, I don't get it.
And we had some feedback on the Super Bowl discussion. It's like a lot of people have been pointing this out that the Super Bowl is in New Orleans next year, right? And they would love to see Lil Wayne, maybe a Cash Money, No Limit Records themed show. You get Lil Wayne, Juvenile, baby, Manny
Back
Fresh,
that ass
Master P. Look, the Super Bowl is not ready for back that ass up. The minute you hear
there
the
were pole
chords,
dancers there.
I don't
in
care.
Vegas
Does not
Sunday.
matter. It does not matter. It does not matter. Have you been in a room when you hear the doom, 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 dun, dun, and then you hear juveniles saying, do it for the 9-9 and the 2000? People lose their shit. I was at PNC Arena for that LL Cool J, like 50 years of hip hop show a while back. Juvenile was there. It's honestly the only reason why I wanted to go, because I wanted to see what would happen to that room when national anthem, stand up, let's go. Here's the problem. I love this idea about this no limit cash money New Orleans thing, right? The problem is that I don't think America's ready for that. America's not ready.
You think it's that much of a cliff from Snoop
Here's the difference.
and Dre?
No,
and then this year,
I'm glad you brought that up. Here's the thing about Snoop Dogg.
You're probably right, because Shakira and J-Lo like moved and people were like,
whoa, oh, dude. Usher embraced Alicia Keys in a performative way when they did their duet at the Super Bowl, and people were thinking, oh my God, what does Swizz Beatz think? That's Alicia Keys' husband. What does he think? What's going on? You gotta be jealous. I'm like, dude, how insecure are y'all in your relationships that you're watching performers perform and you're thinking, oh man, they must be doing it? Who wants to tell these people, hey guys, you know that movie you watched where they did it? Where they're having the sex? They're not actually having sex. Just want to let you know. Red Shoe Diaries was not real. It was real to me, damn it. So I like this idea. The problem is you brought up Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. The thing about Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg is that they're now cuddly.
I was going to say, okay.
Has Lil Wayne, here's my honest question. I don't know the answer to. Has Lil Wayne reached the point of safe the way that Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre have? Dr. Dre, for the most part, people recognize him as, oh, that's the guy with the headphones. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And with Snoop Dogg, it's like, oh, he's like on every commercial. He hung out with Martha Stewart. And he likes hockey. He's doing Corona commercials. Lil Wayne's in a lot of commercials, but is he safe? I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't know. Here's the answer for the Super Bowl. Next year, I'm calling it right now. We'll save it, clip it, move it on. Missy Elliott. Missy Elliott has hit that point where she's entering into her nostalgia era. She's cameoed before, but she has enough recognizable hits. Enough recognizable hits and enough choreography where I think it's going to work.
She could play the What the Gillio.
She could do that. And then, of course, Dimitri, our friend, put together the Butt Rock Super Bowl halftime, because we've now entered our Creed era. So why not just do a nostalgia trip of all these radio staples from 20 years ago? And he suggests
in Dimitri's wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's clearly going back to his mornings on 96 Rock. All right,
definitely.
I mean, for me, I would actually block this from memory. I would never want to hear these songs ever again if I were Dimitri, considering he used to be on the radio with these things. So he suggests they open up with Nickelback, How You Remind Me, and Rockstar. The stage turns to reveal Puddle of Mud, which She Hates Me, Chad Kroeger with backing vocals, and then Blurry. Cut to the crowd. Three Doors Down shown while the rest of the band appears on stage. You get Kryptonite, Here Without You. Scott Stapp comes out for the final chorus of Here Without You. The rest of Creed joins them. One Last Breath, followed by My Sacrifice. The entire lineup returns to the stage as Guy Fieri rises from the floor with Higher and The Reason closing it out, the Hoobastank cover. I think that is perfection. I think that is perfection.
But why would that be New Orleans?
It's not about New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
It's just about just doing a halftime show that would absolutely crush it. And I think that might be it. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We will see you all Wednesday.